This is Britt Caswell with another example video. In today's example, we are covering example 3 from lesson 1-3 in the SavvasRealize Algebra 1 textbook. In this problem, we are actually looking at what are called mixture problems, which is where usually 2 to 3 things are being compared, possibly mixed, and we are trying to determine some kind of cost usually, alright? So these problems are really nice for businesses, alright? And this is the type of problem you will see in a business, okay? For example, Miss C used to work for a local bakery slash cafe called Flying Star out here in New Mexico. And one of the decisions that the business owners had to make was how much coffee to use from different locations and what type to make this coffee blend. Alright, so this is the kind of discussion and the type of analysis that they had to actually do in their business. Alright, this is a real problem. Alright, was it this particular Arabica and Robusta coffee? No, it was different coffee, but I mean, the premise is still the same. Alright, let's continue. So we have two types of coffee, alright, the Arabica and the Robusta. And we know their cost per pound. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out how much of the Arabica coffee we have to mix with 3 pounds of the Robusta coffee to make a blend that's costing a certain amount. Alright, so a blend that's costing $15.50 per pound. Now with mixture problems like this, you're almost always going to have some kind of table. Alright, so usually down one side or across the top, they'll have your two choices of product. So here's our Arabica, here's our Robusta. And then they have what's called like the total column. Alright, so this is with both of them. I'm going to write the word both right there just so that we remember that's it, both. Alright, and then on the right hand side, or across the top and then down the right hand side, we have the price, the amount, and then the total. Alright, usually I look for what types of numbers are occurring in the word problem because we aren't always going to be given a table, right? So some of the kinds of things I look for, here they're talking about money, so I know I'm going to have some kind of money column. Here they're talking about pounds, which is some kind of unit, so I know I'm probably going to have a pounds column. And then here they talk about a price per pound, so that's how I know that I need like well, I already know the price per pound, that's going to be over here. But I know I'm going to need like a total as well. So let's take a look at where we can kind of plug in these numbers, okay? So our first value, we have Arabica coffee costs $28 per pound. Alright, so if I go to Arabica, it's either the price, the amount, or the total cost. So the price is the money one, so I'm going to put that there. Alright, our next part of the word problem, Robusta coffee is $8.75 per pound. So we go to the Robusta coffee, the price per pound, put $8.75. Now we do also have this $15.50 per pound that I underlined, which is going to be the blend, right? So that's what's going to go right here. Okay, so now, how many pounds of Arabica coffee must you mix? Okay, so that's telling us that the amount is what we don't know. Alright, so I'm going to have some variable. I'm going to use A for Arabica. So I don't know the amount of Arabica coffee. It says, must I mix with 3 pounds of Robusta coffee? So on the Robusta, I know I have 3 pounds to make a blend that costs $15.50. So here we are, we have kind of part of a table filled in, right? And one thing on this table, we are always going to be multiplying the price per pound times the number of pounds. And we'll always have an equal sign here. Alrighty, so let's see if there's anything in these kind of total or both columns that we can fill out. So the Arabica coffee, I know that it's 28 bucks per pound, and I know that I'm going to have a number of pounds. So if I multiply those together, I'm going to have 28A for the total cost of the Arabica coffee. Alright, not super helpful, but it's there. Alright, across the Robusta coffee, I know that I have $8.75 per pound, and I'm going to have 3 pounds. So I can determine the total cost of the Robusta coffee. In this case, $8.75 times 3, doing that on my calculator, is $26.25. So that's how much I'll be spending on Robusta coffee at least. Alright, so now we have to kind of maybe start going down the table. Alright, we're looking at the coffee blend and the amount that we're going to have. I know that I'm going to be using a number of pounds from the Arabica coffee, and they told me I'm going to be using 3 pounds from the Robusta coffee. So this amount here is A plus 3. The same thing comes down here, right, with my total. I'll have some total amount on the Arabica plus some total amount that I spend on the Robusta, which I know, and that'll get me my total cost. So here we are. So now we have to think about this coffee, right? And so I'm going to kind of draw us a picture, roughly, because I'm terrible at drawing. So I know that I'm going to have this like plate of Arabica coffee beans. These are really terrible coffee beans, okay? Let's talk about these guys. And I know I'm going to have another plate with the Robusta coffee beans. That's these guys. Now if I combine those plates together, oops, and I scroll apparently. So if I combine those plates together, I'm going to get this coffee blend, right? And it's going to have both the Arabica and the Robusta. So in terms of creating an equation, right, I know I can add together those two coffee beans and it'll equal my coffee blend. So now what I have to do is I have to figure out a way to combine these into a single equation. I'm really hoping this makes sense. What I'm going to recommend doing is I'm going to recommend doing it based off the total cost. Alright, so let's look at this. So for my Arabica coffee, my total cost is 28A. For my Robusta coffee, I know that it's 26.25. And then with my coffee blend, I know that I have 28A plus 26.25. And now I have a single equation with a single variable that I don't know, and now I can solve and get an answer. Alright, so let's go ahead and I'm going to erase my little bean plates because I want to do the actual math. And we're just going to do this like a normal equation. Alright, there we go. Bye bye beans. So I always start by drawing my river down from the equal sign. Okay, and then we said, well, we always want to make sure that we get everything with a variable on one side, everything without a variable to the other side. Let's try this. So I'm going to subtract 28A, subtract 28A. Oh, what do you see? Do you guys see that here the A's would cancel out? So trying to do it based off just the total column wasn't working for me. Okay, and that's why. So if going down one column isn't getting you an answer, try going across one of the other total columns, and let's see if that works, okay? Sometimes going down works, sometimes going down doesn't. Sometimes you have to go from side to side. So just kind of plan it a little bit smartly, okay? I would have, if I wasn't trying to make this example for you, I would have looked and seen that I have the same value in front of my A. I have that same coefficient. So going down that column wouldn't have worked for me. But I wanted to show you the thoughts for it. So now let's look at this coffee blend column. Okay, I told you if going down the column doesn't work, let's go across the row. So if I look at this equation that's here in the bottom, it's saying that I take 1550 and I multiply it times A plus 3, and I should get the 28A plus 2625. I know this equation is going to work, unlike the last one, because if I go to do distribution here, I'll have 1550A, and on the other side I'll have 28A. So it's not gonna suddenly lose the A's, if that makes sense. So here we go. So here's our little river. I'm going to use my distribution to get rid of my parentheses. Here's that 1550A that we knew was coming up. And then 1550 times 3. Oops. Using my calculator here. Failing to use my calculator. I get 4650. And then my right hand side is still the same as it is. There aren't any like terms for me to collect or anything, so it's still the same equation. Now I want to have a positive A value, right? So if I were to subtract 28A from both sides, I'd have a negative 1, and negative numbers kind of make me nervous. So instead, I'm going to subtract the 1550A to the other side of the equal sign. So now on my left-hand side of the equation, I have 4650. On my right-hand side of my equation, I have 1250A plus 2625. Now I want to get that A by itself, right? So in order to get A alone, I'm going to subtract the 2625 from both sides of the equation. So 4650 minus 2625 gives me 2025 equals 1250A. And that 1250, that is just multiplication. So to undo multiplication, I'm going to go ahead and divide by 1250. Alright, so divide by 12.5. That gives me 1.62 for my A value. Now, I don't normally like having just a number answer for a word question, so I'm actually going to answer this in the form of a sentence. So, you must mix 1.62 pounds of Arabica coffee with 3 pounds of Robusta coffee to make a mix that costs $15.50 a pound. So notice if you have a word question, you answer it with a word answer. Now this is kind of a long video, so what I'm going to do is I will do the second example here in just a second. I want you guys to pause, make sure that you guys know everything about this first one, because the second one I'm going to go through a little bit quicker. Alrighty, here we go. So this is just the same type of problem, just with different values. Alright, so we have Arabica coffee, it's 28 per pound. And it says Robusta coffee is $8.75 per pound. It says how many pounds of Arabica coffee do you need to mix? So the amount here is an A. With 5 pounds of Robusta coffee to make a coffee blend that's $12 per pound. Alright, so there's our little table. Remember, now we need to go ahead and fill out our totals columns. So I'm going to put our little multiplication dots, put our equal signs. So going down this column, right, the coffee blend is the Arabica coffee plus the Robusta coffee. We know that we're mixing different pounds, right? Across the top here, the Arabica coffee at $28 per pound with an unknown number of pounds would be 28A. Now the Robusta coffee we know is $8.75 a pound times 5 pounds would be $43.75. And then to get the total cost of the blend, you would add those two together. Okay. So then we said, well, to solve this out, we're actually going to use this bottom equation, right? Because if I go across this way, my 28s will cancel. So I get 12 times A plus 5 is equal to 28A plus 43.75. I go ahead and I draw my river. We don't like having grouping symbols here, so I'm going to distribute to get rid of my grouping symbols. So 12 times A is 12A, and 12 times 5 is 60. The right hand side doesn't have any like terms or anything, so we are good to just leave it alone. Alright, now I want a positive A value, right? So instead of subtracting 28, I'm going to subtract 12. So I get 60 equals 28 minus 12, that's 16. And then there's an A plus 43.75. Next up, we're trying to get the A alone, right? So I'm going to subtract 43.75 from each side of the equal sign. Using my calculator here, 60 minus 43.75, I get 1625 is equal to 16A. So then this is a multiplication, and to undo it, I'm going to divide. So 16, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know where the 2 came from out of my brain. I'm going to be dividing by 16, not 2. Alright, because you have to divide by what you multiply by. Come on, draw tool. There we go. 16. There we go, I see. So 16.25 divided by 16 is about 1.02. Okay, it's not, oh, that's terrible notation. That equal sign is going to be wiggly. Okay, remember this means approximately. So I'm rounding it to the nearest hundredth. Okay, so in order to make a blend that costs $12, they would need to mix about 1.02 pounds of, that's the capital A, Arabica coffee with 5 pounds of Robusta coffee. Alright, so you take that word problem, answer it with a word solution. And there we go. That's example number 3. Until next time.